Do you think that there'll be more people trying to get into the listing side of business with everything that's going on in the media right now of real estate?
They should be.
So we'll have more competition.
Yes, definitely.
We'll really have to sharpen our skills.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, the average agent is not going to get on the phone and make the phone calls.
No, you're
It's
right.
not as much competition as you think. And the average agent is not consistent. If you want to do this, you have to be consistent in your activities.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to be consistent, you're not going to get anything.
Hi, I'm Noelle with today's Brew, where top producing real estate agents share their tips and tricks on taking more listings, making more money, and having fun doing it. On today's episode, we welcome Mary Tablada from Annapolis, Maryland. Hi, Mary. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Noel. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're so excited to hear all about you.
Thank you. What would you like to know?
Well, lots of things. Let's start with how you got started into real estate and how long you've been in the business.
Well, I started because a friend was doing real estate and he thought I would be good at it. And I actually decided to give it a try. And I became a real estate agent in 2006. And so the market has gone up and down several times. And I've switched companies a few times, depending on what worked best for me. And right now I'm with Coldwell Banker, and I sell residential, and I do short sales or standard sales, really anything in residential that can be done. And I've worked for Rio Banks as well. Right now I'm just doing straight regular sales.
Okay. So you have a lot of experience, a lot of history with real estate, which is good because we're kind of in an interesting time these past few years. So you need strong agents with strong skill sets, right?
And patience.
And patience, definitely patience.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit how your morning looks. How do you get started in every day?
Well, I find that we're allowed to start calling legally at 8:00. And I think you have to stop by 9 at night. There was a time that I tried to call all day and I wore myself out. But what I do now is I just start calling at 8 in the morning. And if I do have a tough schedule, even if I have to stop earlier than I would prefer, I make sure I start at 8 and I do some calls at that time. And there is a misconception, actually, that people think you have to call for hours to get an appointment or a listing. And I have found that I often get listings within 20 minutes or, an appointment that turns into a listing. Do not have to call.
People jealous right now.
I do not have to call for a long time. I think I'm fairly good at talking to people. And I do definitely learn scripts. And I work with Jackie Kravitz and Jim Chamberlain. And Espresso Agent, I use that, of course, and I use the dialer system. They provide free training with Jackie and Jim. However, I did sign up for Jackie's coaching, and it's very helpful. And I will say that Espresso Agent, in doing all these things, has just really turned my real estate around, because I was struggling. After COVID, I went from having like 40 listings, or not listings, but sales, which included listings a year. And then I went down to just a few. So now everything's picked up. I'm so busy because, and then they always say that when you have listings have babies. So when you have a listing, you get more clients because people are calling and they'll see something and they'll say, oh, well, I'm interested in this. Well, then this doesn't work, but can you help me with this? And so you end up with either more listings or more buyers.
What a fun place to be, too. Like you said, it's either a little quiet or you're in the weeds.
Yeah, definitely.
And like you said, patience, just getting through the cycles of the downtime. And keeping going requires a pretty healthy mindset. How would you encourage other agents to keep that mindset going every day?
Well, I think when panic sets in, it's because you have not reserved enough funds in your savings. You really, when you're on a commission-based job, you need to set aside 6 months of savings so that if deals are not coming in uh, all the time, that you have something to pull on, because then you obviously your whole life is going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have something in reserve, and your mindset needs to be that when you're making these phone calls, you are going to get something. If you make enough phone calls, there is going to be someone that answers the phone that wants to work with Mary, wants to work with Nicole, and or Noelle. And so that is the thing. When you pick up the phone, you can't get discouraged when people are discouraging, because they're in a tough place. You call expireds and they want to um, hang up on you because the last agent didn't do well, the market didn't work well, something went wrong, but it's not meant to you. It's something that where they're frustrated, and you need to know how to handle it. And that's where scripts comes in. Makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Being prepared, knowing what to say,
Mm-hmm.
and objection handling. So, what are some of the objections that you're hearing right now?
I think one thing I'd like to touch on is that what Jackie teaches is just repeating what people say. So if someone tells me, which is the most common thing, well, I'm not going to sell right now. I may not sell at all, or I'm going to sell later. So they need to know they were heard, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to accept what they said. Um, Jim often says that people, without being meaning to, in a sense, lie because they're just trying to get off the phone.
Yep.
So if somebody says, I don't want to list right now, I just changed my mind. So you have to say something. So you need to affirm that you heard them and say, so you're not listing right now. And then you just go on to the next thing. like, so you affirm that you've heard them and then ask them another question.
Repeating what you said, 1 to 3 words of what they said, and letting them know that you're not just listening, you also care and you're engaging with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to go. It makes people feel like they're being heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I have read, that can help, that sometimes they'll just offer up even more information to you just
That's
because
true.
they feel comfortable talking to you now.
Yes.
And
I
sometimes
had
it's
one client. She was like probably my second listing, and then after we got the first one sold, she said, "Okay, well, I have another one for you to sell." So it became a second selling, and she's buying.
Woo! That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before COVID that you were doing about 40 deals a year, and then things slowed down. So you changed your approach and have your coaches with Jim and Jackie, and use espresso for dialing, which is great. Um,
Yes.
so where are we at now? Because it's November. What was your goal for this year, and where are you in terms of meeting it?
My goal would be to have 2 listings a month to
Okay.
add into my arsenal.
Okay. And did you have a good year doing that?
I'm getting 4 more listings right now. Is in the
Ooh,
process. So yeah, I think so.
it sounds like it. If you have four coming up, that's
Hmm.
incredible. Good. Congratulations. You're working hard. You're making things happen.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your listing presentation when you're going on these listing appointments and you're securing these new clients. What makes you stand out from other agents? What are you doing? What are you saying?
Well, I would tell you that don't sell something that's sold. So if I go to someone's house, I might present a different listing presentation than I would to someone who is hesitant and has a lot of questions. But if I have someone who's just about ready to sign, I'm not going to try to convince them. I'm going to come with the paperwork. I'm going to go over it and see if they're ready to sign and go from there. And I always bring I used to do CMAs and send out the long CMAs with different property photos and stuff like that. And I've had people tell me that it confuses them. So
Okay.
also printing the one-liner CMA or, comparables is very easy to take with you to a presentation. And I can show the last 3 or 4 homes that sold, the current ones that are selling. And it's easy to show that PDF. Now the CMA with the photos and all that would have to be sent to someone's email, because then you're talking about 20 pages. But I would come with my listing agreement, and I come with that short little synopsis of the PDF that's going to show me my sales. And if I'm going to do anything else, or if I decide that this person maybe needs some type of a video, I'll have my iPad, and I have a little iPad. On my iPad, I have a little video that talks about how I do sales and all the things that I do.
Okay. You're prepared, it sounds like. Here's a question for you. What do you do if they ask you to cut your commission at a listing presentation or listing appointment? How do you handle that? What's your objection?
Well, we have been typically accepting 2.5. So I will do 2.5. If it's an investor that regularly sells from me or buys from me, then I'll work with those people. But other people, I heard a lady say, I tell you what, I heard a lady from Coldwell Banker made this comment. She went to a high-end listing, and she was with another agent. The other agent was scared because this was a multi-million-dollar listing. And the lady said, "Do you mind coming with me? Because I know he's going to kill me on commission." So the lady said, okay. She flew out, and they went to the listing presentation together. And they're sitting at the table, and the man gets very almost disrespectful. And he says, "So what are you going to charge for commission? Are you going to charge 2.5, 2, 3?" And of course, that wouldn't be both sides of the commission anyway.
Yeah.
And the lady said, "Well, 3.5 would be our side." And then I don't know if he said anything else. And then she looked at the other agent, and she said to this man who's extremely rich, and he's trying to, get a low commission rate.
Yeah.
She said, "You didn't tell me he was struggling." And he said, "I'm not struggling." And she said, "Oh, well, then why would you even say that to us?" And they got a 7% listing.
I can say I've never heard someone say that, but way to go, girl.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. So I think going over what you're going to tell people, because people have this idea that our commission is expendable and we can be cut down. And, and I've done it. I've worked with people, but you need to be prepared about what you're going to say to people.
I mean, in my area where I'm a real estate agent, it's standard 6%. I've definitely done 5 before. It's normally when it's a friend. Guilty as charged. But then I have had, that was more in the beginning of my real estate career. And now when I've even thought about saying it or even started to say it, my friends say, "Absolutely not. This is your business." And I really respect that. I mean, big time. They do not cut it at all. This is your business. Take what you're supposed to take. And that's a nice thing to hear, because it is a challenge when you sit down to have that conversation, and it is a loved one or a good friend. But I guess we shouldn't be feeling that way, really. We should have confidence in what we're delivering. Right. Okay. So say that you're on a phone call and you don't get the listing appointment. How are you staying in touch? How are you following up?
Oh, I set a timer on Espresso Agent that reminds me to call back. I talked to a man yesterday, and he seemed very receptive, but he said it was a little too early because yesterday was, it was the day before yesterday. He said yesterday was Halloween. And he said, he was just not ready to talk about anything. And I sent him an email, because I have, Espresso Agent has the ability to send up automatic emails if there is an email on the screen. And I said, just check your email, and then I'll call him back.
Okay.
So I'll set a reminder.
7 days, 14 days?
Probably, it depends. I might call him later that day.
Okay.
Or because if you wait too long, if somebody tells you you're going to sell, if you're going to sell, I'm going to sell in 3 months, right? Call me in 3 months. Well, by that time, some agents come by and gotten them at 1 month, so you can't wait that long.
There's a lot of us out there.
Yes, there's a lot of us.
Do you think that there'll be more people trying to get into the listing side of business with everything that's going on in the media right now of real estate?
They should be.
So we'll have more competition.
Yes, definitely.
We'll really have to sharpen our skills.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, the average agent is not going to get on the phone and make the phone calls.
No, you're
It's
right.
not as much competition as you think. And the average agent is not consistent. If you want to do this, you have to be consistent in your activities.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to be consistent, you're not going to get anything.
Sounds like a well said closing almost. All right. Well, how can we reach out to you? We know that you're in Annapolis and at Coldwell Banker. Give us some of your social media, email, and phone numbers so that we can refer
I
you.
am on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and my email is Mary Tablada, BPO@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today, Mary.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me. And I love Espresso Agent. It's really turned my career around.
Yay. Thank you so much. We love hearing that.
Thank you.